Hey guys, welcome to a new video. Like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy. Without any further interruptions, enjoy the What If. Chapter 15. With the Inferno Twins. "WHO summoned me," said the two foxes at the same time before they turned to each other with a fox's equivalent to a raised eyebrow. "Hey bro," they said to each other before slapping one of their tails together, oddly resembling a high five. The 6 clones that had summoned the two foxes had to dodge some of the embers from the fire their tails hitting caused. "Hey you two, watch the fireworks would you?" screamed the first clone with his eyebrow twitching dangerously. The two foxes turned their attention to the top of the elder twin's head, only to come face to face with 6 irritated Naruto clones. "Naruto-sama?" asked the foxes, getting a negative shake of the heads from the clones. "No, we're clones," said the first clone before pointing to the dark purple barrier off in the distance. "With our luck, and who we are, the real one is most likely inside that barrier fighting against Orochimaru with the Raikage and everybody else." "Then why have you summoned us?" asked the younger twin as he observed the village before them. Raising an eyebrow at the unmoving people in the village, the fox turned back to the Naruto clones. "Any reason those humans wearing the dark blue are staring at us in fear, while those gray and tan ones looked confused?" "Because we summoned you in the middle of an invasion. The dark blue ones fear you because this is the village that Kurama attacked 13 years ago, before he was sealed inside of me," said one of the clones, causing the two foxes to snarl while the air around them began to heat up. "Calm down you two. This village's time will come, but not today. We need you to handle the 3 snakes in the center of the village." "Why? Those snakes are destroying the village. I say we let them do as they want," said the elder twin as they watched the snake summons attack the 3 Akamichi members. "No," said the first clone, "when this village's time comes, we will be the ones to destroy it, and the entire Fox clan will be their help. For now though, I want some snake barbecue. What do you say guys?" The two foxes smirked at this and looked at each other before nodding in agreement. "Since you're just clones, you might want to stay out of this one if you don't want to get dispelled," said the elder twin before the clones jumped away and landed on some trees a ways away. "Now then, shall we little brother?" "Yes my dear brother, we shall," said the younger twin before they both charged at the snake summons with a hungry glint in their eyes. "With the clones, we do realize that those two will most likely cause as much collateral damage as they possibly can, right?" asked one of the clone while the others nodded in agreement. "I wouldn't be surprised if they destroy half the village during their fight, but as long they leave the village standing enough so that we can destroy it later, then I really don't care," said the first clone with a smirk. "Well, our part of the plan's complete. Better let the boss know." The other clones nodded in agreement before dispelling in a poof of smoke. The first clone was about to do the same, until he felt a familiar demonic chakra nearby. The boss did plan on talking to him. I'm sure he won't mind if I do it for him," whispered the clone before jumping towards the source of the demonic chakra. "With Kakashi and Kurenai behind you," shouted Kakashi as he threw a kunai over Kurenai's shoulder, killing the Odo Chunin that was about to stab her. "Thanks Kakashi," she said as she spun on her heel and roundhouse kicked 3 Suna ninja in the face. Glancing over to where the 3 genin were fighting, she saw Shikamaru trap another 3 Odo ninja while Kiba and Choji hit them with their respective techniques. As she was looking at the genin, she felt like something was off. Glancing around at everyone else on the battlefield, she saw Kakashi frying a pair of Odo Junin with a lightning jutsu and Asuma spinning on his heel and slicing 3 Suna Chunin into ribbons. She looked back over to the genin and her answer slammed into her like an Akamichi's fist. "Kakashi," she shouted, getting his attention, "where are your other 2 genin, Sakura and Ino?" Kakashi narrowed his only visible eye in confusion before he looked over at the 3 Konoha genin. His eye widened in understanding before he turned back to Kurenai with a scowl on his masked face. "Oh those 2 better not have," he trailed off as he kicked another Odo ninja in face. "With Anko. Damn, I'll give those root bastards one thing, they sure know how to eliminate their trail," said Anko as she continued to jump through the trees outside the village. "Too bad they can't eliminate the Uchiha Brat's trail for them." As she was jumping through the trees, a small, green snake with black spots scattered over its body poked its head over her shoulder. "Mistress, the Uchihas sent 200 yards to the north, and it seems he's begun moving on his own again. If my memory serves, They are nearing the border of Fire Country and Rice Country, said the snake, flicking its forked tongue a few times. Why would they be going to Rice Country? Asked Anko out loud as she continued to pursue her targets. She continued on in silence for a few more minutes, contemplating what her summon had told her before her eyes shot open in understanding. That's where the Odo village must be, she screamed before she picked up her pace. Damn it, Rice may be neutral, but no ninja is allowed in the country without checking in with the daimyo. If Odo is in Rice Country, then only Odo ninja are allowed in and out without hassle. Damn you Orochimaru, you planned this didn't you? She continued to pursue her targets for another few minutes before she reached the edge of the tree line and the forests gave way to the grassy plains that bordered Rice Country. Son of a bitch, they're already across the border, she muttered before taking a quick glance around the area. She noticed light reflecting off of something on the ground. Moving over to the object, she raised an eyebrow in mild surprise at what it was, a Konoha headband with a slash through it. So the brat really did abandon Konoha. This should make things much more interesting. She was brought out of her thoughts by her summon poking its head over her shoulder again. Mistress, there are 2 scents 100 yards south by southwest of here. Judging by the scent trails in the air, they tried to follow you but lost track of you. They don't seem that strong either. The scent of their chakra is barely above what you would consider academy level, said the snake as Anko furrowed her brow in confusion. Thank you Nioi, I can handle things from here, said Anko as the small snake nodded before disappearing in a poof of smoke. Now to figure out who the hell was stupid enough to try and follow me. With Sakura and Ino. Nice going Ino pig, thanks to you we lost that crazy snake lady, said an irritated Sakura as she and her blonde teammate continued to jump through the trees of Fire Country. Where's your excuse? You're a kunoichi too you know, how about putting your skills to use and help me find her? Said Ino as she glared at her rival. You know I'm not a tracking type, I'm a genjutsu type kunoichi, said Sakura, her annoyance at her teammate clear in her voice. Well I'm not a tracking type either, my dad says I'm more suited to be an interrogator, said Ino as she turned around to get in her teammate's face. And if you're a genjutsu type, then why don't you know any genjutsu? She said with a smirk as Sakura's face contorted in anger. Oh yeah, well how the hell are you supposed to be an interrogator? You only know one of your clan's jutsu, and you get squeamish at even the sight of blood, said Sakura as she glared at her blonde nemesis. The two wannabe kunoichi kept bickering back and forth like that for an indeterminate amount of time, completely unaware they were being watched. In a tree a few yards away. You have got to be kidding me, those two are the ones who tried to follow me. What in the 7 levels of hell possessed them to do something this stupid? Screamed Anko in her head as she continued to watch the two girls bicker. Okay, as entertaining as this is, I thinks it's time I break up this fight, she though before jumping out of the tree she was in and landing in front of the two startled kunoichi. What the hell do you two think you're doing? Anko asked with a glare that sent a shiver down the two genin's spine. The two genin were so frozen in fear of the crazy Junin in front of them, that they couldn't do much more than stare at her while shivering every now and then. Getting annoyed with their staring, Anko decided to try a different approach. Alright you two, as a special Junin of Konoha, and your superior, I order you to tell me what the hell you were thinking following me, and if I don't like your answer, I'll have you two dropped from the ninja program. This seemed to do the trick as the two genin snapped out of their stupor with looks of horror on their faces. What? You can't do that! They screamed at the same time. Anko just gave them a look that clearly said, you want to bet. The two kunoichi recoiled slightly, before Sakura decided to speak up. We were watching the finals when the invasion began. We saw Sasuke-kun get taken away by those two masked ninja and you go after them. We decided to follow you so we could help bring Sasuke-kun back to the village where he belongs. Where is Sasuke-kun anyway? I thought you went to bring him back, she said the last part with a glare at Anko, with Ino glaring at her as well. Anko gladly returned their pathetic glares, while inwardly wondering how they would take the news of their precious Uchiha. Sasuke Uchiha is a traitor to Konohagakure. He willingly crossed into Rice Country and has willingly joined Otogakure and Orochimaru, said Anko, causing the two genin's eyes to widen in shock, before they narrowed in suspicion. You're lying. Sasuke-kun would never betray the village, he cares too much for us to ever do such a thing, said Ino, back in full fangirl mode. Sakura followed her example, and started to defend the Uchiha as well. Yeah, Sasuke-kun would never betray Konoha. Why would he betray the people who love him, she said with her glare intensifying. Anko just stared at the two genin in shock for a few seconds, one thought repeating itself over and over in her mind, how the hell can anyone be that thick and oblivious to the truth? Shaking off her shock, the former Konoha Junin reached into her jacket and pulled out Sasuke's slashed headband. The two fangirls stared at the slashed headband in shock, before their eyes filled with tears and they began to sob. It can't be, why would Sasuke-kun betray us like this? I don't know why, but we're returning to the village now, we need everyone helping to fight off the invasion, said Anko before she took off in the direction of Konoha, with the two wannabe kunoichi following, their tears still falling. With Naruto and Yugito, forgive us young ones, we cannot control our movements, said Tobirama as he and his brother stood across from the two blonde Jinchuriki. Naruto and Yugito stood at the ready, each mentally preparing themselves for the fight that was about to begin. Although, I sense that you two are not normal genin, are you? Naruto smirked slightly at that. Kurama and Matabi were their aces in the hole for this fight. You are correct, Tobirama-sama, we aren't normal, said Naruto before he threw a kunai at the two cages. Neither Senju brother moved to avoid the kunai, since it wouldn't hit either of them on its current path. I guess Tobirama was right, they aren't average genin, they're below average, thought Hashirama as he watched the kunai as it passed harmlessly in between him and his brother. What he failed to notice though, was Naruto making a half-ram sign just before the kunai exploded a little ways behind the two brothers. Completely caught off guard by the explosion, the brothers were launched forward towards their blonde opponents, who were currently going through hand signs. Fire style. Fireball jutsu, said the two Jinchurikis before they both unleashed a fireball the size of a horse at the prone cages. Clearing his head from the explosion, Tobirama managed to form hand signs as he and his brother continued on their collision course with the fireballs. Finishing in the bird sign, Tobirama brought his right hand to his lips before expelling a large amount of water from his mouth. Water style. Tearing torrent jutsu, the water impacted the flames, creating a thick steam layer that blanketed the area of road they were on. Taking advantage of the steam cover, Hashirama jumped towards the two Jinchuriki after his brother used his sensor abilities to locate them. Two silhouettes appeared in the steam as Hashirama sped through hand signs, before ending in the snake sign. Wood style. Wood spike jutsu, he whispered. Instantly two wooden spikes shot out of the roof and impaled the two dark figures in the chest. Expelling chakra from his body to clear the steam, the first Hokage was met with the sight of two blonde ninja impaled by his jutsu. Frowning at the sight of two young ninja dying by his hand, Hashirama retracted the spikes and moved towards the bodies, only for them to disappear in a shower in sparks. Surprised at being tricked, Hashirama wasn't prepared for the two roundhouse kicks that hit him in the chest and face, sending him skidding back towards his brother. Tobirama watched as his brother was sent skidding in his direction by the two blondes and he had to admit, he was impressed. No one other than himself, and two others, had ever managed to catch Hashirama by surprise, and these two genin had just done it twice in the same fight. These two are far from ordinary genin, I can't tell for sure, but there's something about their chakra that's different from normal chakra, thought Tobirama as his brother got back to his feet, like the last attack never happened. It seems the stories of your strength and power weren't as exaggerated as some people believe. You truly live up to your reputation, Hashirama-sama, Tobirama-sama, said Naruto as he faced two of the most powerful shinobi in history. We have to be careful, if these two decide to actually fight us seriously we'd be dead in under a minute, thought Naruto as he and Yugito continued to stare down the two revived cages. No kidding Kit, I may be prideful, but even I have to admit that these two not to trifle with. If you and your mate plan on surviving this, then your only bet is for Yugito to use Matabi's techniques to defeat them, said the voice of Kurama from inside Naruto's head. You're right Kurama, I guess I'll just have to buy her some time to get ready, thought Naruto before he turned his head slightly so he could see his girlfriend from the corner of his eye. Yugito-chan, the only chance we have of defeating these two is if you use the jutsu Matabi taught you, whispered Naruto as Yugito nodded in agreement slightly. You're right, but it will take time to prepare the chakra necessary, and if the first figures out what we are before I can, Then he'll just his wood style to seal off our demonic chakra from us, whispered Yugito as tried to think of a way to prepare her jutsu without the first figuring out that they were Jinchuriki. Turning so she could see her boyfriend from the corner of her eye, Yugito noticed his infamous fox smirk on his lips. Don't worry Yugito-chan, leave that to me, said Naruto before he turned his full attention back to their opponents, who watched them with impassive eyes. Pulling 2 shuriken from his holster, Naruto threw them at the 2 cages before going through a few hand signs, Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu. The 2 shuriken became 200, once again surprising the 2 Hokages. Speeding through hand signs, Hashirama ended in the snake sign once again, before slamming his hands on the ground. Wood style. Dense forest creation, said the revived Hokage as roots and trees began to grow out of the roof they were standing on and filling the entire ceiling barrier with the forest. One root in particular rose up in front of the 2 brothers, blocking the hail shuriken before it reached them. Naruto frowned as he looked around the forest that now surrounded him and Yugito. Well damn, this complicates things a little bit, thought Naruto as she continued searching for their opponents. Naruto-kun, they're directly in front of us, they're using the trees as cover so they can attack from the shadows, said Yugito as pointed in the direction they had last seen the 2 cages. Nodding in understanding, Naruto formed a few shadow clones, before he turned to Yugito. Hide yourself while you prepare the jutsu, my clones will protect you while I hold off those 2, said Naruto before jumping off in the direction of the 2 cages. Yugito sighed slightly before she too jumped from her spot in search of a place to conceal herself until she was ready, the clones following at her heels. Naruto landed on a branch across from the 2 cages with a frown on his face as he contemplated how he should go about this. He was brought out of his thoughts by the sound of Tobirama's usual monotone voice. How is it that you know the Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu? That is a kinjutsu that is only found in Konoha, not in Kumo, asked the second Hokage, his eyebrow raised in mild curiosity. Naruto had to fight hard to keep the satisfied smirk off of his face. It wasn't every day that you piqued the curiosity of a person like Tobirama Senju. You are correct, the Shuriken Shadow Clone Jutsu is a Konoha kinjutsu, but your student Sarutobi gave me access to the Hokage's personal library. I must admit, I was very impressed with everything that I found in there. Hashirama and Tobirama narrowed their eyes when he mentioned Sarutobi giving him access to the Hokage's library, before returning to the impassive nature. I see, was the only thing Tobirama said before started going through hand signs. Once again finishing in the bird sign, Tobirama kept his impassive face even as his jutsu formed, water style, water dragon jutsu. From out of nowhere, a large serpentine dragon made of water charged at Naruto as he sped through hand signs of his own. Earth style, earth spike jutsu, he said as he jumped from the branch he was standing on, the water dragon continuing its pursuit. Landing on an open patch of roof, Naruto slammed his hands on the ground, causing a large earth spike to rise up and impale the water dragon just before it hit him. Hurry Yugito-chan, I can't keep this up for long, thought Naruto as he went through more hand signs as he charged the first and second Hokages. With the Raikage same time. Damn it, I need to hurry up and beat this guy. Naruto and Yugito will need everyone they can get to defeat those 2, thought as he dodged another punch to the face from Dajimu. Countering with one of his own to Dajimu's stomach, smirked as he made contact and knocked his opponent back a few feet. His smirk vanished however, when Dajimu simply stood up and made no outward indication that the punch affected him. What does it take to get a reaction out of this guy? Thought as he watched the rogue Akamichi form hand signs. You are unfit to be a kage or a leader of any kind, said Dajimu in the root monotone, expansion jutsu, both arms. Dajimu's arms grew to the size of horses before he launched them towards the Raikage. A scowl on his, the Raikage bobbed and weaved around the massive fists that would surely flatten him if they made contact. How dare he call me an unfit kage, what does he know about being a leader? Thought as he jumped over another punch from the root Anbu. Taking advantage of the situation, started running down the Akamichi's enlarged arms and delivered a crushing roundhouse to the man's face. Stumbling back slightly, Dajimu easily regained his bearings before shrinking his hands and launching a couple of kunai at the Raikage. Easily dodging the kunai, glanced in the direction the Naruto and Yugito were fighting the first and second Hokages, before he was hit in the face by a flying spin kick. You are a pathetic excuse for a cage, said Dajimu as he slowly stood up from where he had crouched after his attack. A true cage makes no ties to his ninja, they are merely tools for him to wage war with, tools that are expendable. A shot the root Anbu Aglera he got to his feet and threw away his cage robes, his muscle chest clear for all to see. You're wrong, a true cage would never think of his ninja that way, only a heartless tyrant like that bastard Danzo would, said the Raikage, spitting out Danzo's name like it was venom. This seemed to finally get a reaction out of the root member, as he scowled at the Raikage before he spoke with an actual emotion in his voice, anger. Don't you dare insult Danzo-sama, he was far greater leader than anyone has or ever will be, spat the root Anbu, before once again schooling his face into an emotionless mask. Smirking, A activated his lightning-style armor and shot at the root Anbu before landing a devastating punch to the man's gut. He was forced to break away from his intended onslaught though, as roots and trees began to sprout from the roof, creating a dense forest inside of the barrier. Damn it, if I don't hurry Naruto and Yugito will be in serious trouble, thought a before blurring away and appearing in front of Dajimu again and continuing his taijutsu assault. With B same time, you know you root bastards are annoying as all hell, said B as he slashed at Terai with one of his swords. Said root member ducked under the slash and tried to stab B his kunai, only to have B's second sword block the strike. Jumping away from each other, the two shinobi just stared at each other for a few seconds before charging back in. Terai sidestepped a stab to the gut and countered with a swipe of his claws, courtesy of the Inuzuka clan's all-fours jutsu. Leaning his head back to avoid the swipe, B used his very unorthodox fighting style and bit into his wrist holding him in place. Terai, despite his years of training in root, let out a yelp of pain and surprise as he stared at his now trapped hand. You are without a doubt the most unorthodox shinobi on the planet, said Terai in the typical root monotone, with a little disgust seeping into his voice. Bringing up his kunai, Terai used their position to his advantage and tried for a stab to B's stomach. Surprisingly, B raised his left sword and blocked the stab easily, even though he couldn't have known the stab was coming. Getting irritated at his wrist still being trapped in his opponent's jaws, Terai reared his leg back and kicked B where the sun don't shine. The reaction was instant. B's grip on Terai's wrist slackened and Terai managed to jump away, a small smirk playing at the corners of his lips. B on the other hand, was currently bent over holding his family jewels with anime tears rolling down his face. Now that just ain't right, hitting a man below the belt should be outlawed, thought B as Gyuki winced inside of his host's mind. Not even a true demon can be that cruel, thought Gyuki as he used his chakra to help ease the pain. Shakily standing up, B glared at his opponent with such hatred and anger that even the Shinigami would wince in fear. All right you bastard, no more Mr. Nice Guy, I'll make you regret ever meeting me for that cheap shot, said B before he threw his two swords into the air, quickly followed by the 5 on his back. Jumping up after his swords, B caught each of them with a different part of his body before landing on his left leg. Terai stared on in slight shock and awe at how B was holding his swords. He had one under his left armpit, blade facing out, one in each of his elbow joints with his right arm above his head, another was held in behind his right kneecap and his right leg was raised, holding another in between his leg and stomach, with the final one in his mouth. B didn't miss a beat. The second he landed back on the roof, he jumped towards his opponent before he started spinning at insane speeds. Kumos style. Human buzz saw, said B as his spinning form raced towards Terai, who was still surprised that a human could move like B was. However, Terai was saved from being shredded to pieces by a massive root that sprouted from the roof. B stopped his attack as he watched the terrain around him change from that a tile roof to a dense forest. Damn it, I better hurry, no telling what kind of trouble Naruto and Yugito will get in with those two as their opponents, thought B before jumped over the root started using his unpredictable Kenjutsu style to keep Terai on the defensive. With Dodai same time, why don't you do us both a favor and die willingly, it'd be too troublesome to fight you right now, said Tera in the typical root, if somewhat lazy, monotone. Dodai just remained in his stance, two kunai at the ready for any kind of attack. Not likely, although, judging by your somewhat lazy aura, I would venture a guess that you are of the Nara clan, right? Asked Dodai as he continued to analyze his opponent. Tera sighed slightly before giving a lazy nod in acknowledgement, bringing a look of understanding to Dodai's face. Well, that explains why you don't want to fight me. Even with the shroud this barrier creates, there are just not enough shadows around for you to manipulate. You're a clever one, I'll give you that, but you're wrong. I just don't to fight you because I have more important things I could be doing right now, like catching a nap, said Terra, his Nara blood showing as he covered up a yawn. Oh well, I guess the sooner I kill you, the sooner I'll be able to sleep. Dodai stiffened, his eyes on Terra's shadow, waiting for an attack. It was only thanks to his instincts that Dodai managed to jump away from his spot on the roof before multiple spears made out of shadows broke through the tiles. You forgot about the shadows underneath the tiles, said Terra before forming the rat hand sign and launching his shadow at Dodai. Jumping to avoid the shadow, Dodai threw his two kunai at Terra, knowing that as long as his shadow was extended, the root member couldn't move. The kunai met their mark as they pierced Terra in the chest, one where his heart was, before, Terra, turned into shadows and sank into the ground. What kind of clone was that? Thought Dodai as he kept his guard up for any kind of counter. As if hearing his thoughts, Terra's voice sounded from seemingly everywhere. That was the Nara clan's shadow split technique. It allows us to disconnect our shadow from our bodies, while at the same time forming a clone that is fully capable of using any of our shadow-based jutsu. Dodai tensed at hearing this. That kind of clone could be very dangerous in the right type of environment. From the corner of his eye, Dodai noticed a shadow moving towards him from underneath the tiles of the roof. Tired of playing hide and seek with his opponent, Dodai jumped away from the shadow while forming hand signs. Lava style. Rubber rope jutsu, whispered Dodai before he spit out a long piece of rubber from his mouth and held it in his hands. Whipping the rubber rope towards the tiles where the shadow was protruding, Dodai cracked it like a whip, knocking away multiple tiles. Out of a secret hole under the tiles came Terra, who had an eyebrow raised as he examined his opponent's new weapon. So a lava-style user that uses rubber-based techniques. This makes things a little more interesting, said Terra before he was forced to jump away his spot on the roof as roots and trees began to grow out of the roof. Dodai looked around the new battlefield while mentally cursing to himself, damn, with this forest, the Nara has more than enough shadows to manipulate. I better be careful, things just got a whole lot more serious. With Sarutobi and Orochimaru same time. Kukuku, now doesn't this seem familiar, sensei? Said Orochimaru with a twisted smirk on his face as he watched his former sensei's face contort in anger. I always did enjoy a trip down memory lane, don't you agree, sensei? The only memory that concerns me is wiping yours from the face of this earth, said Sarutobi as he charged his former student, his adamantine staff at the ready. Seeing that his taunting wasn't going to work as well as he hoped it would, Orochimaru spat up a snake, before the snake opened its mouth and regurgitated a sword handle. Grabbing onto the handle, Orochimaru pulled out the legendary grass-long sword, Kusanagi. Swinging his legendary blade to meet his sensei's own legendary weapon, the two clashed with the ringing of steel. The two cage-level shinobi struggled against each other for a few seconds before jumping away from one another and preparing to strike again. It was at that moment that an eye appeared on Sarutobi's staff and Enma's voice sounded from the staff in his hands. Be careful, Sarutobi, even in this form, the Kusanagi will still be able to harm me. Sarutobi nodded in understanding before swinging Enma over his back and keeping him in place with chakra. Flipping through hand signs, Sarutobi brought his hand to his mouth after he finished in the tiger sign. Fire style. Fire dragon jutsu, a serpentine dragon made of red-hot flames shot from Sarutobi's mouth and charged for the rogue Sanin. Orochimaru stabbed his Kusanagi into the ground beside him and sped through hand signs, before ending in the snake sign. Wind style. Vacuum bullet jutsu, bringing his hand to his lips like Sarutobi, Orochimaru launched a bullet of compressed air the size of a horse at the charging fire dragon. When the bullet collided with the dragon, it punched easily through the flames before an explosion rocked through their area of the roof. Taking advantage of the smoke screen created by the explosion, Orochimaru grabbed his Kusanagi and charged towards his former sensei. Sarutobi seemed to have similar thoughts, as the two cage-level shinobi clashed in the middle of the smoke. They were forced to jump away from each other, however, as roots and trees began to grow all over the roof. Orochimaru smirked as he watched the forest grow around them. Well, Well sensei, it looks like that blonde brat you care so much for is as good as dead. You, more than anybody, should know that whenever the first Hokage uses this particular jutsu, his opponents never live to tell the tale. Curse you Orochimaru, I swear it's the last thing I do, I will kill you. Thought Sarutobi before he charged at his former student with murder in his eyes. With Naruto's clone continued to jump through the trees surrounding Konoha as he searched for his next target. Found you, thought the clone before he jumped into a clearing and landed in front of his startled targets. Gaara, said the clone as he watched the surprised Shukaku Jinchuriki with a critical eye, we need to talk. Last time on Kumos Black Fox. No, said the first clone, when this village's time comes, we will be the ones to destroy it, and the entire Fox clan will be there to help. For now though, I want some snake barbecue, what do you say guys? The two foxes smirked at this and looked at each other before nodding in agreement. Since you're just clones, you might want to stay out of this one if you don't want to get dispelled, said the elder twin before the clones jumped away and landed on trees a ways away. Now then, shall we little brother? Yes my dear brother, we shall, said the younger twin. Sasuke Uchiha is a traitor to Konohagakure. He willingly crossed into the land of rice and has willingly joined Otogakure and Orochimaru, said Anko, causing the two genins' eyes widen in shock, before they narrowed in suspicion. You're lying. Sasuke-kun would never betray the village, he cares too much for us to ever do such a thing, said Ino, back in full fangirl mode. Sakura followed her example, and started to defend the Uchiha as well. We have to be careful, if these two decide to actually fight us seriously we'd be dead in under a minute, thought Naruto as he and Yugito continued to stare down the two revived cages. No kidding Kit, I may be prideful, but even I have to admit that these two are not to be trifled with. If you and your mate plan on surviving this, then your only bet is for Yugito to use Matabi's techniques to defeat them, said Kurama from inside Naruto's head. My thoughts exactly Kurama, I guess I'll just have to buy her some time to get ready, thought Naruto before he turned his head slightly so he could see his girlfriend from the corner of her eye. Yugito-chan, the only chance we have to defeat these two is if you use the jutsu Matabi taught you, whispered Naruto as Yugito nodded in agreement slightly. You're right, but it will take time to prepare the chakra necessary, and if the Shodai figures out what we are before I can, then he'll just use his Mokuden to seal off our demonic chakra from us, whispered Yugito as she tried to think of a way to prepare her jutsu without the Shodai figuring out that they were Jinchuriki. Turning so she could see her boyfriend from the corner of her eye, Yugito noticed his infamous fox smirk on his lips. Don't worry Yugito-chan, leave that to me, said Naruto. You are a pathetic excuse for a cage, said Dajimu as he slowly stood up from where he had crouched after his attack. A true cage makes no ties to his ninja, they are merely tools for him to wage war with, tools that are expendable. A shot the rude Anbu a glare as he got to his feet and threw away his cage robes, his muscled chest clear for all to see. You're wrong, a true cage would never think of his ninja that way, only a heartless tyrant like that bastard Danzo would, said the Raikage, spitting out Danzo's name like it was venom. This seemed to finally get a reaction out of the rude member, as he scowled at the Raikage before he spoke with an actual emotion in his voice, anger. Terai reared his leg back and kicked Beware the sun don't shine. The reaction was instant, B's grip on Terai's wrist slackened and Terai managed to jump away, a small smirk playing at the corners of his lips. B on the other hand, was currently bent over holding his family jewels with anime tears rolling down his face. Now that just ain't right, hitting a man below the belt should be outlawed, thought B as Gyuki winced inside of his host's mind. Not even a true demon can be the cruel, thought Gyuki as he used his chakra to help ease the pain. Shakily standing up, B glared at his opponent with such hatred and anger that even the Shinigami would wince in fear. All right you bastard, no more Mr. Nice Guy. I'll make you regret ever meeting me for that cheap shot, said B before he threw his two swords into the air, quickly followed by the 5 on his back. That was the Nara clan's shadow split technique. It allows us to disconnect our shadow from our bodies, while at the same time forming a clone that is fully capable of using any of our shadow-based jutsu. Dodai tensed at hearing this, that kind of clone could be very dangerous in the right type of environment. From the corner of his eye, Dodai noticed a shadow moving towards him from underneath the tiles of the roof. Tired of playing hide and seek with his opponent, Dodai jumped away from the shadow while forming hand signs. Yoden. Rubber rope jutsu, whispered Dodai before he spit out a long piece of rubber from his mouth and held it in his hands. Whipping the rubber rope towards the tiles where the shadow was protruding, Dodai cracked it like a whip, knocking away multiple tiles. Out of a secret hole under the tiles came Terra, who had an eyebrow raised as he examined his opponent's new weapon. So a Yoden user that uses rubber-based techniques. This makes things a little more interesting. Kukuku, now doesn't this seem familiar, sensei? Said Orochimaru with a twisted smirk on his face as he watched his former sensei's face contort in anger. I always did enjoy a trip down memory lane, don't you agree, sensei? The only memory that concerns me is wiping yours from the face of this earth, said Sarutobi as he charged his former student, his adamantine staff at the ready. Seeing that his taunting wasn't going to work as well as he hoped it would, Orochimaru spat up a snake, before the snake opened its mouth and regurgitated a sword handle. Grabbing onto the handle, Orochimaru pulled out the legendary grass-long sword, Kusanagi. Swinging his legendary blade to meet his sensei's own legendary weapon, the two clashed with the ringing of steel. The two cage-level shinobi struggled against each other for a few seconds before jumping away from one another and preparing to strike again. It was at that moment that an eye appeared on Sarutobi's staff and Enma's voice sounded from the staff in his hands. Be careful, Sarutobi, even in this form, the Kusanagi will still be able to harm me. Sarutobi nodded in understanding before swinging Enma over his back and keeping him in place with chakra. Chapter 16. Gaara, said the clone as he watched the surprised Jinchuriki with a critical eye, we need to talk. No one moved for what felt like hours, each wrapped up in their own thoughts. Tamari was doing her best to keep her face neutral, but inside she was a nervous wreck. Images of her little brother's altercation with the blonde before them and his teammate flashed through her mind like an endless cycle. Who the hell is this guy? If he was able to scare Shukaku enough to retreat back inside of Gaara, then what the hell could he do to the three of us? These thoughts continued to play out in her mind as she tried to discreetly prepare for a possible attack. Kankuro was having similar thoughts as his sister, only he wasn't succeeding in keeping up any kind of facade, his fear of the person before him plain for all to see. What the hell could he want with Gaara? Either way, if those two start going at it, I'm getting out of here. Screw the mission, my life is more important than that. Gaara could do little more than stare at his fellow Jinchuriki as his mind flashed back to the events of the tournament. From inside Gaara, Shukaku was shaking in both fear and fury. He was furious that he had been outclassed in power by a mere human, though said human was also the host of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. That alone was also the reason for his fear. While he may be prideful as one of the 9 Biju, he was not suicidal, and even the thought of having to face his other fellow Biju, even Matabi, who was only a tale stronger than him, filled him with dread. Deciding to break the silence, and finally finding his voice, Gaara spoke in his usual monotone, what is it you want with me? The Naruto clone smiled slightly at finally getting a reaction, I mean seriously, did mine and Yugito's little display scare them that much? I only wish to talk, but before we begin I would like you to tell me why it is that Suna, one of the 5 great shinobi nations, would ally itself with someone like Orochimaru to attack Konoha. This threw the Sand siblings for a loop. Of all of the questions they were expecting, that sure as hell wasn't one of them. Though I don't agree with the reasoning behind it, our father, the Yondaime Kazekage, said it was a chance to prove to the Wind Daimyo that he should send more funding and missions to Suna instead of Konoha, said Tamari, a growing frown on her face as she continued to remember why she and her brothers were forced into this. The clone looked over at Gaara and Kankuro for confirmation and got a nod in response from both of them. I see, started the clone as he gathered his thoughts. Unfortunately though, this invasion was a failure from the start. Even if you were to succeed and manage to defeat Konoha, it would all be in vain. Your father is dead, killed by Orochimaru's own hand some weeks ago. What? Screamed Tamari and Kankuro at the news of their father's death while Gaara merely raised an eyebrow in surprise. Why would he do something like that? Orochimaru himself came to our village to negotiate the terms of the alliance to attack Konoha. I can't believe it, that backstabbing snake tricked us. Raged Kankuro as his mind came up with some very tortuous ways of making Orochimaru pay. Believe it, said Naruto, drawing attention back to him. Orochimaru only desires two things in this world, and they are immortality and to bring Konoha to its knees for, in his mind, betraying him. He doesn't care what lengths he has to go to, who he has to kill, or even what happens to his own men. So long as it means accomplishing his goals, he won't hesitate to do anything he has to. The Naruto clone took a moment to observe all of their reactions to this information, and he wasn't very surprised by their reactions. Temari's expression looked like a mix between sadness and rage. The sadness obviously from losing her father to the likes of Orochimaru, and at the same time feeling rage at what the snake had done and wanting nothing more than to shred him with her fan. Kankuro was very similar to his sister, only minus the sadness. He was furious that Orochimaru would deceive them like this just to exact his revenge on Konoha. He swore that if it was the last thing he did, he would make Orochimaru pay for his treachery. Gaara on the other hand just remained impassive about everything. He couldn't say he was really saddened by the news of his father's death because of how the man had treated him when he was younger. "Why are you telling us all this anyway? What do you get out of it?" said Temari as she got a hold of her emotions again. This seemed to bring Kankuro out of his dark thoughts of what he planned to do to Orochimaru, and also managed to pique Gaara's curiosity as well. The clone nodded in acknowledgement before he answered, "Why, I'm telling you this is simple really, I want to help you." The Sand siblings couldn't hide their surprise at this statement, but before any of them could respond the clone continued. "I once lived in this village, and like Gaara, I was hated and feared for what I hold. I lost count of how many times I was thrown out of stores, and almost every other establishment in this village, all because I was the so-called demon child. However, that wasn't the worst of what I had to endure. Every year, on October 10th, my very own birthday, a festival was held to celebrate the defeat of the Kyuubi at the hands of my father, Minato Namikaze. On that same night, almost all of the villagers would get drunk and would form a mob to finish what the Yondaime started. Sadly, they succeeded in finding me almost every year, and when they did, they beat me to the point where I have looked the Shinigami in the face, only to be rescued at the last possible minute by whatever Anbu was supposed to be guarding me that night. I hate this pathetic village, probably even more so than Orochimaru. This village is nothing to me, I want nothing more than to watch it burn to the ground, but on my terms. I will be the one to decide this village's fate, not some pathetic invasion attempt by a deranged snake." Temari and Kankuro couldn't stop the blood that drained from their faces as they continued to listen to the blonde Kumo shinobi. As the children of the Cage, they were treated almost like royalty in Suna. Sure, they had seen how Gaara was treated, but that was only when their father or a personal escort was not with him, and even then it was only harsh whispers and glares. Even though they feared him because of Shukaku, the thought of Gaara having to go through what Naruto did brought a protective fury neither knew they possessed to the forefront of their minds. Gaara continued to stare at his blonde counterpart, showing no outward reaction to what he had just been told. Inside of him, however, was a completely different story. When Naruto had first started his tale, he wasn't moved in the slightest, having experienced much the same thing in Suna. He was just about to interrupt the blonde, when he had begun to tell them about the beatings he had to go through. That had silenced the redhead quickly. He may have had assassination attempts made on his life before, but they were all unsuccessful and only started to happen when he was about 6 years old. Naruto, it seemed, had experienced far worse treatment at the hands of his former village, and if the look in the blonde's eyes was an indication, then the beatings were probably more frequent than once a year. He knew for certain that if he was forced to go through the same thing, then he would have given in to Shukaku long ago and leveled the village for what it did to him. But that thought begged the question, how did you not succumb to your hatred? You mean how did I not end up a crazed, bloodthirsty killer like you, right? Asked Naruto with a chuckle, causing Gaara to frown at the barb. It's actually a rather interesting tale. I told you how I was treated in this village, but one thing I didn't tell you was that on one occasion, a mob of villagers and shinobi beat me so badly that had I not been a Jinchuriki, I would be dead right now. The Sand siblings' eyes widened slightly at that revelation, but you know, I'm actually kind of grateful that they did that now, because if they hadn't, I have no doubt in my mind that I would have turned out just like Gaara did. Grateful? Why the hell are you grateful that they did that? If you're telling the truth, then they might as well have killed you. You said it yourself, if you weren't a Jinchuriki, you would be dead right now. yelled Kankuro. Naruto sent a small glare at the puppeteer for interrupting him, causing said genin to immediately regret what he said. I'm grateful to them, because if they hadn't, I never would have met Kurama. Seeing the confused looks on Temari and Kankuro's faces, he elaborated, Kurama is the true name of the Kyuubi no Kitsune. All traces of color drained from Temari's and Kankuro's faces as the words left the blonde's lips. Since the only experience with Jinchuriki the two had was from their little brother, they had naturally assumed that all Jinchuriki, as well as the other Biju, were the same as Gaara and Shukaku. That a Jinchuriki could not only talk to their Biju, but if they were reading between the lines correctly, that said Biju would willingly help their Jinchuriki was both fascinating and terrifying at the same time. Finally managing to find her voice, Temari broke the silence that enveloped the four genin. Why, you don't mean? Naruto nodded his head in the affirmative, already knowing what the blonde Kunoichi was going to ask. Yes, Kurama was the one who helped keep me sane during my time in this village. He helped me train, taught me how to survive on my own, and for that, I am eternally grateful to him. It may seem strange to you, but not all Jinchuriki are bloodthirsty killers, and deep down, neither are you Gaara. Before the Suna genin had a chance to respond, Naruto beat him to it. I understand you more than you realize, Gaara. I know that deep down, you aren't the crazed killer you have made yourself out to be. How can you be certain you are correct? We both may be Jinchuriki, but what makes you think you understand me at all? Asked Gaara, a small trace of surprise and fear lacing his voice. This didn't go unnoticed by the blonde Jinchuriki, who sent a small smile towards the redhead. You aren't the only one who put on a mask to try and protect yourself from the people around you. Gaara's eyes widened in shock as an uncharacteristic intake of breath let Naruto know he had hit the nail on the head. You are not alone in this world, Gaara. Temari and Kankuro may be your siblings by blood, but you also have a brother in me. We may not be related by blood, but we are both Jinchuriki. We both know the pain that comes with that title. It may be painful, Gaara, but you have to take off your mask. If you don't, then sooner or later you will lose yourself to the darkness in your heart. You will become the very thing you hold at bay, the very thing the people of your village believe you to be, a demon. Gaara could do little more than stare at the blonde shinobi across from him. Not only had he been able to see clean through his mask, something even Temari wasn't able to, he had also told him what his own subconscious had been telling him for years. That if he truly wanted to feel alive, to know that his existence meant something, he would have to take off the mask of a psychotic murderer. But what else could he be? He had worn the mask for so long that he had started to forget what was behind it. But maybe, just maybe, Naruto was right. The Naruto clone watched as a multitude of emotions flashed through his fellow Jinchuriki's eyes. He knew how hard it was to take off one's protective mask. He himself had times where his attitude and personality would revert back to his mask of an idiot, but they were becoming less frequent as time passed. You don't have to make a decision now, Gaara. I understand what must be going through your mind right now, so I will leave you to your thoughts. However, I strongly advise you to return to Suna as quickly as possible. If you wish to recover your father's body, it is in a ditch 10 miles out from the west gate, said the clone as he gave one final nod to the Sand siblings before dispelling in a cloud of smoke. The three Suna genin stayed in the clearing for several minutes after that, each of them wrapped up in their own thoughts. Surprisingly, Gaara was the first one to come out of his thoughts. Temari, Kankuro, I'm sorry. The two older genin were taken by surprise at the sudden apology, but quickly remembered what Naruto had said about Gaara's mask. I hope this means I can finally have my little brother back, they thought at the same time before the three Suna genin took off to the west gate. With Naruto panted as he leapt off of another branch that had animated itself and started to lash out at him. This had been going on for several minutes. After he had destroyed the Nadime's water dragon, he had attempted to catch the two cages off guard with frontal assault, while a shadow clone moved behind the two to trap them in a pincer move. That had been a disastrous failure. The Nadime had easily sensed the new chakra signature long before the clone had gotten behind them and had made a clone of his own to dispatch Naruto's. With his clone destroyed, Naruto had left himself open to an immediate counter from the Shodai, and he more than capitalized on it. Hashirama unsealed a broadsword from a storage seal on one of his wrist guards and moved to cleave Naruto's head off. It was only thanks a quick substitution that Naruto had barely managed to avoid the attack. But that was when things got even harder. The Shodai stopped attacking directly and instead focused on manipulating the forest around them. Tobirama knew what his brother was planning and had immediately moved to the shadows and occasionally launched a sweetened jutsu at Naruto. Damn it, thought Naruto as he jumped over another water dragon. Hurry Yugito-chan, I'm almost at my limit. With a quick pulse of chakra, Naruto turned around, threw a handful of kunai into the shadows. The Nadaime jumped from his hiding place, easily dodging the kunai, even though it wasn't necessary. Naruto collapsed to one knee, his breathing labored, as he watched the two brothers in front of him. I must admit, I'm quite impressed with your level of skill at such a young age, said Hashirama as the forest calmed and returned to its original state. You remind me very much of myself when I was young. The Shodai smiled slightly as he said this, though it seemed strained. However, it seems you have reached your limit. Indeed, said Tobirama, his crossed and his always present neutral expression firmly in place. You seem to possess the same drive as Hashirama, but you have a calculating mind, reminiscent of me during my youth. Despite the situation, Naruto smirked slightly at the compliments. Hey, you honor me Hashirama-sama, Tobirama-sama, but I'm not out of this fight just yet. Tobirama shook his head slightly. It seemed that the blonde before them was more like Hashirama than he thought. Hashirama's smile widened slightly, the strain it took even more pronounced than before. You fought bravely, young shinobi. There is no shame in admitting defeat when you know you cannot win. Sadly, due to the talismans that were implanted into us, our bodies are not our own anymore. The talismans are designed to completely suppress the personality of those brought back with the impure world reincarnation, turning them into no more than mere puppets for the user. However, continued Tobirama, the one that summoned us, has greatly underestimated our power. I was the one who originally designed this jutsu and the talismans used to control it. I designed them so that in order to gain complete control over the summoned, the user must be able to use their own power and will to force the summoned to submit to them. While this person is indeed powerful, they are not able to completely control us. I see, mumbled Naruto, his mind already going into overdrive, so while he is able to control your bodies, he cannot completely suppress your personalities. That explains why you two seem to be fighting against yourselves during our battle, as well as the effort you're having to put into keeping that smile on your face, Hashirama-sama. He does indeed have the same analytical mind as you, Tobirama, said Hashirama with a chuckle. So it would seem, said Tobirama with a small, almost unnoticeable smile gracing his lips. The smile immediately vanished as his body suddenly started to run towards the downed blonde, a ninjutsu appearing from a seal on his armor. It seems this is the end, young one. For its worth, I'm sorry, said Tobirama as he brought his sword back, ready to swing. Hope this works, thought Naruto as he reached inside his blood-red cloak and unsealed his newest weapon. The Nadaime's sword was mere inches from Naruto's neck when a blade of pure lightning appeared and blocked the strike. It didn't stop there, however. The legendary blade cut clean through the sword with ease. Tobirama, surprised at the sight of his former weapon being used against him, wasn't able to stop himself in time to avoid the blade. Seizing the opening, Naruto swung the Raijin at the Nadaime, completely bisecting his reincarnated body. Jumping away from the Nadaime, Naruto watched as the former Hokage's body began to regenerate itself again. Damn it, looks like I was wrong. Even though the bodies seem to be made from some type of earth-based substance, lightning doesn't have the same effect of neutralizing them like it does Doden techniques, thought Naruto as he began to ready himself for another attack. Before he could move to attack, his eyes widened as he received the memories from two of his clones, the one who talked to Gaara and one of the ones he sent to guard Yugito. Alright, time to end this, he thought before he deactivated the Raijin and held the handle in between his hands as he formed hand signs. Ending with the ram seal, Naruto jumped from his position on a branch, activating the Raijin as he fell back to the roof. Flipping the Raijin into a reverse grip, Naruto used both hands to stab the blade halfway into the roof as he landed. Raijin no Ken, Imperial Field of the Thunder God. The roof began to shake slightly, instantly putting Hashirama and the newly regenerated Tobirama on guard. Instantly, multiple spikes of pure lightning rose from the ground, impaling the brothers in various points along their bodies. However, Unlike most techniques that involve the use of lightning, this one didn't dissipate after it was completed. Instead, the lightning spikes stayed in place, suspending the two brothers a few feet from the ground. "Very impressive technique you have here," said Hashirama, his reincarnated corpse twitching every so often with the lightning running through it. "But I'm curious, how is it that you came to have the Raijin in your possession? The last I saw of it before my death was when Tobirama still wielded it." It seemed Tobirama wanted to know the same thing, if the pointed stare he was giving Naruto was any indication. "Yes," said the Nadaime in his normal monotone, though his voice held a slight growl to it. "How did you come to own my sword?" "Your sword?" growled Naruto from his kneeling position. "This sword was never yours. You're nothing but a thief who stole it from my clan, the Uzumaki clan." "You're an Uzumaki?" asked the Shodai, surprise evident in his voice. "Yes, my name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. I am the last surviving member of both the Uzumaki and Namikaze clans, and as is my birthright, I have reclaimed the Raijin in the name of my ancestors." "But wait, if you're an Uzumaki, then that means..." Hashirama's voice trailed off as he continued to stare at Naruto, almost as if he was searching for something. "Yes, I am your distant grandson Hashirama-sama, and your distant grandnephew Tobirama-sama. Though I still do not know for certain the lineage that leads my line back to the boy you and Mito-sama adopted, I do know for certain you two are my family, if only in name." With the rakage, "This guy is really starting to annoy me," thought as he dodged another fist the size of a horse. Ever since the forest had been created on the roof, I had been forced onto the defensive. While he may have been far faster, and more than likely, physically stronger than his opponent, the environment they found themselves in was not to his advantage. His superior speed was all but useless in the dense forest, only helping him to dodge Dajimu's enlarged appendages. While he could have easily smashed his way through the thick forest around him and gotten to his enemy, and he was seriously considering doing just that, years of dealing with Naruto's pranks had taught him that smashing through things recklessly was not in his best interest. Sidestepping yet another fist the size of his body, I capitalized on his position by grabbing onto the fist with both hands and pulled on it with all his strength. Dajimu didn't have time react as he was forcibly pulled from his spot in the shadows, only to be met with a lightning-infused elbow. "Elbow!" screamed as his arm made contact with the airborne root Anbu. With a satisfying crunch, Dajimu was launched into one of the many trees surrounding them, seemingly unconscious. Just as I was about to move to deliver the final blow, Dajimu jumped up into the canopy above them. "It seems I underestimated you. You seem to possess some level of skill," said Dajimu, his voice echoing throughout the small clearing, "but it's time to end this little skirmish." I braced himself, preparing for whatever his enemy had planned. Kaden. Blazing human bullet impact, the flaming form of Dajimu, under the effects of his clan's multi-size jutsu, began falling towards A, intent on obliterating the rakage. I had other ideas though, as he brazenly jumped up to meet the flaming human head-on. With a quick pulse of chakra, several protrusions appeared along A's right vambrace. Focusing most of his Raiden armor's power to his arm, A used his left hand to brace his right shoulder as he made contact with the root Anbu. "Lariat!" roared as he launched Dajimu's flaming form back into the air, watching with satisfaction as the Anbu crashed into the top of the barrier. His attention was immediately drawn from his opponent writhing on the ground as the flames from the barrier burned, to a strong pulse of Matabi's chakra coming from where he had last seen the two blonde genin. "Crap, if they use their Biju's chakra against the Shodai," he trailed off as he immediately launched himself deeper into the forest, not wanting to imagine what might happen. "Hang in there Naruto, Yugito, I'm on my way." With B. Unlike his brother, B had been completely on the offensive against his opponent. His unorthodox style of fighting made it nearly impossible for Terai to counter, but that didn't mean the root Anbu was going to go down easy. For longer than any other person, other than A had been able to, Terai had managed to avoid most of B's attempts at finishing him, though he did receive his fair share of cuts and gashes. "Man, this guy is good," thought B as he continued to use his seven swords dance to attack the rogue Anbu. Terai jumped behind a root, hoping that to buy himself a few moments to gather his thoughts. Unfortunately for him, B had other plans. Charging his lightning chakra into his swords, B used his human buzz saw to shred the tree into splinters. Terai had just enough time to substitute himself with a log before he was shredded by B's swords. Okay, no playing around, it's time to end this bastard once and for all. Stopping his spinning, B threw his swords into the air and did some aerobatics to catch each of them in their respective sheaths. Alright Gyuki, time to release the bull. You got it B, put this guy down and go help Naruto and Yugito, said Gyuki as B drew on his tenant's chakra. A shroud of red chakra enveloped the Hachibi Jinchuriki, taking on the form of a bull with a single tail swinging behind him. Terai only had a moment to think before he was forced to duck. Barely a second later, B's chakra-coated arm smashed through the tree behind him. He wasn't fast enough to dodge B's follow-up though, as the chakra tail batted the Inuzuka away. Terai struggled to his feet. He may have been tough, and able to brush off most hits and not show a reaction, but even he couldn't ignore the pain of coming into direct contact with a Biju's chakra. His moment of weakness would cost him though, as B suddenly appeared next to him, his arm extended once again. Lariat, said B, his voice taking on a demonic edge as his arm rammed into Terai's neck, effectively blowing the man's head off his shoulders. He didn't stick around to admire his handiwork however, as he instantly sped through the forest towards where he sensed Naruto and Yugito. With Dodai, if anybody had been watching the fight between the two shinobi, they could have easily mistaken it for a game of shogi. The two shinobi realized early on that they were almost equals in terms of skill and ability. In the end they knew that the winner would be the one who could outthink the other. While there may have been little actual combat between the two, a fierce battle was being waged as both strategists pitted their minds against one another. With the added shadows from the forest surrounding them, Terra had immediately fallen back into the dense foliage and attempted to trap Dodai with his multitude of shadow techniques. Dodai proved himself to be deserving of his place among his fellow shinobi, as he avoided being ensnared in the famed shadow jutsu of the Nara, despite the environment being almost completely covered in shadows. Dodai had forced Terra to reveal himself on more than one occasion with clever application of his mud clones and Yoden, rubber rope. Terra likewise had used his shadow split technique to great use, almost capturing Dodai and forcing the man to dodge multiple shadows at once. But no matter how they tried to get an upper hand in the battle, the other always had an answer for them. Dodai jumped into the air, avoiding another attempt from Terra to trap him in his shadow. Swinging his rubber rope in the direction he saw the shadow retreating, Dodai watched as Terra once again jumped to a different hiding place to strike from. Forming two more rubber ropes in his hands, Dodai swung them in the direction he saw his enemy retreat, only to watch again as he blurred away to a different location. Time to lure him out into the open, thought Dodai as he flashed through a chain of seals, ending in the tiger seal, Kaden, flame whirlwind. Fire surrounded Dodai as it began to swirl around him. Pushing his hands forward, Dodai launched the swirling tunnel of fire at the forest in front of him. Spinning on his heel, the Yoden user used his extensive training in nature manipulation to guide the tunnel of fire so that it set all of the trees around him ablaze. His plan seemed to work as Terra jumped down from his burning tree and moved to strike Dodai with his flat-tipped tanto. However, before Terra managed to get within striking distance, multiple rubber ropes appeared from the burning forest and wrapped themselves around various points on Terra's body, trapping him. Terra couldn't hide his surprise as he now found himself at Dodai's mercy. How? Dodai smirked at his trapped enemy as he pulled out a kunai from his pouch. My rubber ropes are very durable, able to withstand multiple impacts, cause significant damage with a single strike, and hold extreme weights without breaking. During our battle, I was constantly creating and throwing away multiple ropes, despite their durability. That still doesn't explain, began Terra before his eyes widened in realization. You hid clones inside of the ropes, didn't you? Not quite, said Dodai. Each of the ropes I created was the real deal. However, I have trained to such an extreme in nature transformation that I can freely manipulate any of my rubber even if I am not in direct contact with it. I simply used the discarded ropes to form rubber clones, and had them position themselves to trap you the moment you were in the open. Terra remained silent for a second before he closed his eyes, silently admitting his defeat. Dodai didn't waste another second. He drove his kunai into Terra's neck, instantly killing the man. His opponent taken care of, Dodai used a pulse of chakra to locate Naruto and Yugito before launching himself in their direction, hoping it wasn't too late. Back with Naruto. You're my grandson. asked Hashirama, his disbelief apparent in his wide eyes. Tobirama wasn't faring much better than his brother at concealing his shock. While the boy he was fighting wasn't from his direct line, or his brother's for that matter, he was still being forced to fight a member of his family. Yes, Hashirama-sama, said Naruto rising from crouched position, though he left the Raijin in the ground. Though as I said, I do not know the line that leads mine back to the boy you and Mito-sama adopted. The only reason I know you two are my family, is because Mito-sama left a letter inside of an Uzumaki chest. Actually, I was hoping you could tell me a little more about my heritage before you were returned to place you came. Mito-sama didn't even mention the name of my ancestor in her letter. Of course, said Hashirama, a heartwarming smile crossing his lips, the effort from before nowhere to be seen. Since Mito-chan was never able to sire children of her own, we were more than happy to adopt the last of Mito's clan into our family. Young Kato Uzumaki was no more than 6 when he came into our family, but despite that, he still treated Mito-chan, Tobirama, I and every other member of our clan like his family. I would tell you more about him, but my time here is short, so I will tell you of your family. Kato married a young woman by the name of Rina Terumi. She hailed from Kurigakure, but moved to Konoha to be with Kato. Terumi, as in the Terumi clan of Kurigakure, known for their dual Kekkei Genkeis Yoden and Futen. Said a surprised Naruto, who would have thought that his family line was comprised of so many well-known clans. Yes, said Hashirama, his smile never once wavering, Kato and Rina sired 2 lovely daughters together, Tsunade and Mei. The 2 of them were always competitive with each other, each trying to outdo the other. When the girls began the academy, they were given the choice of which of their clan names they wished to take. Tsunade, wanting to honor both myself and Tobirama, took on the Senju name, while Mei, who was almost a carbon copy of Rina, took on the Terumi name. That is all I can tell you. I died shortly after the girls started the academy. Naruto was silent for a moment, mentally branding the names of his family members into his skull. He swore that even if it was the last thing he did, he would find a way to help reunite his broken family. Thank you, Hashirama-sama, you have no idea how much this information means to me. You're welcome, young one. Naruto smiled at the Trap brothers. Now all that I need to do is find the few missing links in my family tree, and help reunite our broken family. You will succeed, said Tobirama, speaking for the first time since discovering his grandnephew's existence. You are the descendant of the Shodai and Nadaime Hokages. I know you will succeed in anything you set your mind to, just as we did all of those years ago. A lone tear fell from Naruto's eyes as he looked at his grandfather and granduncle for what could possibly the last time. Thank you, Tobirama Jiji, I'll make you and Hashirama Jiji proud. With one last smile towards his ancestors, Naruto jumped back a little. Now Yugito-chan. From the surrounding forest, Yugito appeared in front of Naruto, her hands glowing with dark blue fire. With a small smile of gratitude towards the 2 legendary shinobi, Yugito swung her hands out in an arc, launching a blade of blue flames at the reincarnated men. Neko style. Reaper Soul Blade. As the blade of fire passed through the 2 brothers, the bodies trembled slightly before crumbling back into dust, revealing the corpses used as sacrifices. However, floating over the piles of ash and dust were the spirits of Hashirama and Tobirama. Hashirama seemed confused as to why his spirit had been released yet hadn't passed on. Naruto saw the confusion being reflected in his ancestor's eyes, and with a sigh pulled out a scroll from inside his jacket. The scroll was completely black. No writing was visible on the surface. With a flick of his wrist, Naruto opened the scroll to reveal a complex sealing array, with multiple circles along the inside of the scroll. The jutsu Yugito-chan used to release your souls from the bindings of the reincarnation is designed so that when the target's soul has been released, it will remain in this world until it is sealed within something. In this case, we will be sealing you 2 inside this scroll, preventing anyone like Orochimaru from summoning you again. Tobirama merely nodded, while Hashirama gave his descendant a warm smile. You 2 are quite the tag team. I know you will become excellent ninja one day. But Naruto, you need not be sad. You are merely doing what is best for everyone involved. Know that I am proud of you, and even though I shall be sealed away, I will always be watching over you. As will I, said Tobirama as the 2 brothers watched Naruto prepare for the sealing. With a quick flurry of hand seals, Naruto slammed his hand onto the scroll in front of him. Fuinjutsu, Path of the Pure World. As the words left past his lips, the first two circles on the scroll began to glow a brilliant yellow. As the chakra from the scroll began to suck the ghostly forms of Hashirama and Tobirama away, Naruto noticed that the other three Kumo shinobi in the barrier had arrived. Once the sealing was complete, Naruto rolled the scroll back up, before placing the scroll inside his jacket. "You're a little late, the fun's already over," said Naruto with a small laugh, before he schooled his features. "What about that senile old man? Don't forget we need to make sure he survives this encounter. Despite how badly I want him dead, he is of more use alive than he is dead." "I have no idea. After you and Yugito separated to take on the Shodai and Nadaime, we were all forced to split up and handle one of the root Anbu Orochimaru had with him," said B as he stopped using Gyuki's chakra, allowing his shroud to fade. "I still don't see why we have to make sure the old Hokage lives through this, but I'll trust your judgment, Naruto," said A, his Raiden armor dissipating as well. "Thanks, Raikage-sama. I'll explain every again once this over, but for now, we have a snake to eliminate." The other four Kumo ninja nodded in agreement with Naruto before all five of them shot off towards the location Sarutobi and Orochimaru's chakras could be felt. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, as well as checking out the author on fanfiction.net.